Welcome to the official podcast of Comics, Beer, and Sci-Fi. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow Comics, Beer, and Sci-Fi on all your favorite social media apps. Now, on with the show!
Hey, this is Mark at the Cleveland Comic Book and Toy Show. I'm here with author Scott MacGregor. He's the writer of the book Captured and Fire on the Water. Tell us a little bit about these books you have here.
Well, Fire on the Water is my first graphic novel. It's a collaboration. I wrote it, and Gary Dumm, the artist, illustrated it. And it's a great Cleveland story. It's about the water tunnels underneath Lake Erie that were built back around the turn of the 20th century. And to this very day, we get our water from these tunnels. But when they were built, it was horribly dangerous work. Scores of men died. And so the book details a couple of the major accidents, including the one that involved a local African-American inventor by the name of Garrett Morgan. Morgan had invented like a traffic light and many other things, but he also invented a gas mask. And that enabled him to go down into the tunnel when no one else could. And he brought people out. And he was a big hero. But then because he was an African-American, he was written totally out of the story. And it took his entire life to be put back into that story, you know. Now, Captured is a book that was actually written by my uncle, Hugh O'Neill. And Gary Dumm also provided illustrations for it. But it details his ordeal as a prisoner of war of the Germans. He was captured right at the end of the war, and there was no place to put all the prisoners that they had, so they were marched on these death marches up and down the roads of southern Germany, and a lot of weird things happened, and he was a good writer. So it's just his memoir of what his ordeal during World War II.
What was some of the inspiration for these books?
Well, I had always been kind of intrigued by the Garrett Morgan story ever since I was a kid, really. And my great-grandfather was one of these guys that worked down in the tunnels, and he almost was killed in an accident. There were so many accidents. He was in one of them. And so having grown up with these stories of, my great-grandfather worked in the tunnels and my interest in Garrett Morgan, it just seemed to fall together, And so years ago, I had a temporary health problem, and it laid me down for a couple months. And Gary had suggested that I work on one of my stories. I had several. And, I used the downtime constructively, and I wrote that book. And then it took us a good 5 or 6 years to get it produced. And then Gary had his own health crisis. He right in the middle of the project, he developed throat cancer. And he had to undergo all of the horrible things that you go through. But he came out of it, and he's happily still cooking, and he's, was thrown into remission. And so for both of us, it was sort of I don't know how to describe it, but since we both had health problems, and this book helped us pull us out of the health problems, so it's kind of unusual, I suppose. But I would say that's how I did it.
So getting back to Gary, now how did you get started collaborating with Gary?
Well, in fact, I'm going to reach for this. In 1976, I met Gary, and he was working on a comic book called American Splendor by Harvey Pekar. And him and his partner, Greg Budget, had just completed issue number 1. And then at the same time I met them, and I always kind of thought I could do that, and Harvey's ability to do a comic book kind of inspired me to give it a try. So we did this. We ended up with Dip Stories, and it's a 32-page comic book that Gary and Greg illustrated, and a couple other artists are involved as well. And so that was the beginning of it, And but for years I went, I had a day job and I had a family, and I kind of laid down the comics for many years, and then picked them up again around 2010, and that's when I started writing that book and doing some one-pagers with Gary. And now that I'm retired, I'm working on a graphic novel right now with an artist, Kevin Karen. And we hope to have that book done sometime. Graphic novels take a long time, and so. But we're hoping that within a year or two we'll have a book that we can present, and that book is about these wild bohemians that lived at Big Sur, California, right after World War II, and sort of had the time of their lives. And it includes stories about Henry Miller, the writer, the guy who wrote Tropic of Cancer, and a lot of other people, including my uncle, who wrote that book. He was suffering from PTSD, and he ended up in Henry Miller's Bohemian colony at Big Sur. And there's a lot of great stories that come out of that, out of that experience. So I'm looking forward to having that book out soon. It's looking great, I must say. Kevin Caron's an excellent artist, and he's based in Colorado. But together we're putting together a really interesting graphic novel right now. So,
getting back to your collaboration with Gary from 1976, did you ever get to work with Robert Crumb?
No, Crumb was gone out of Cleveland by that point, and so I never met him, and I never worked with him. But of course, he was great inspiration. I mean, everybody wanted to be Robert Crumb.
Me too.
Yeah, I just love Zap Comics and the other things that he did. And he was in Cleveland for a good while, but and worked at American Greetings, where my daughter actually works right now. But I think he moved out of Cleveland in I want to say the early '70s, something like that. And but I think he inspired. Of course, he was a friend of Harvey Picar's, and if I was inspired by Harvey was inspired by Crumb. So it kind of goes round and round like that.
So where can people find your books?
Well, the books are available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. They can also find them in books or order them through bookstores if the bookstore doesn't have it. But they're widely available online, and of course they're in many libraries across the country as well. Abrams Comic Art is a very good publisher, and they were able to get the book distributed in a lot of different nooks and crannies around the country, in libraries mostly. So,
All right, Scott. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you. I won't take up too much of your time. And
Thank you.
This is Mark at the Cleveland Comic Book and Toy Show. Hey, this is Mark at the Cleveland Comic Book and Toy Show. I'm here with Natalie Haines. She's creator and author of some of this cool stuff that she has on her table, like the Sonic the Hedgehog book that she's worked on. Tell us a little bit about the stuff you got here.
Yeah, so I work with IDW Publishing on Sonic the Hedgehog and My Little Pony. So I got a bunch of different stuff at my booth here today. I do a lot of different cover work, both traditional paintings, digital paintings, a bunch of different stuff. I recently just had some My Little Pony work come out as well. That's some really cool interior work that I'm really proud of. So I'm really excited to share that with people here today. So.
How did you get started doing this stuff?
I was actually following one of the editors for IDW Sonic Online. I've always been a Sonic fan, my whole life. And he had made this really vague tweet about looking for artists, and I was like, I'm going to shoot my shot. You can't, fail if you don't even try. So I reached out to him, and I was like, here's my portfolio, and they reached out the next day. So it was really cool. I actually ended up going, at the time I was in college, and I had to go to one of my professors, and I was like, is this a legit email, or am I getting scammed here? Because I want to make sure this is legit before I respond.
When you started out, who were some of the artists that inspired you to want to do art?
I grew up reading the Archie Sonic comics, which is one of the things that really got me into Sonic and comics from the beginning. Tracy Yardley was a huge influence on me, seeing his work with Sonic especially. And he did a bunch of other work recently with Mega Man and a bunch of different stuff. So I grew up, literally tracing his work out of the book to try to learn to draw these same characters. So really, really cool influence.
So what do you got coming down the pipeline?
I'm working on a bunch of different stuff, some unannounced IDW things coming up. We got a cool Sonic collab coming up here soon. They haven't officially stated what it is yet, but it's on the horizon. It's on its way. So I'm really excited for that to come out here shortly. And then I've also been working on just some original stuff that I've been writing and drawing myself with my own characters, trying to get away from some of the IPs a little bit and get my own art kind of out into the world a bit. So working on those, and hopefully we'll see more of that this year.
Where can people find your work and some of the other things that you're selling?
Yeah, you can find me online. My username is lightningstar1389. I made it when I was 10 years old. It's too late for me to change it now because now it's my business name.
Tell us a little bit about the audience that you have that's interested in your work and how you're keeping everyone interested in the work.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Sonic in particular, well, even with My Little Pony as well, there are these huge IPs that have been around, for generations of fans. So they've got some older fans, but they've also got a lot of younger fans. With Sonic, the new movie just came out, so there's a lot of little kids that are really excited to see Sonic and talk about it. And they're just now realizing, via this character that comics exist. For the first time, they're finding just characters that they enjoy, and it's kind of filtering them into the comics world. So it's really fun to just kind of see kids come up and get really excited about, characters that we all have an interest in, and to just see them light up about it and just tell them, more about this world and comics. And, you don't have to be this fancy big, hero or person to work with an IP that you really love and care about. So they all get very excited about it.
So you are the future of this industry.
We'll see. I hope so. It's a lot of fun.
Do you have a favorite Sonic game?
Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for the GameCube, 2001.
Natalie, it was a pleasure speaking with you, and this is Mark at the Cleveland Comic Book and Toy Show. Hey, this is Mark at the Cleveland Comic Book and Toy Show. I'm here with legendary artist Gary Dumm. Hello, sir. How you doing?
I'm good. You remember when you talk about people being legendary, it generally means they're dead. I'm not dead yet.
Sorry about that. You worked on American Splendor. Tell us a little bit how you ended up getting the job working with Harvey Pekar.
Well, originally I had done a silk screen print of Popeye that was in the May show at the Cleveland Museum of Art. And Harvey ended up seeing that print in a mutual friend's office at the VA. When he said to her, "That guy's a friend of yours. Can he draw anything besides Popeye?" And she said he can draw anything. And it unfolded from there.
Tell me, did you get to work with Robert Crumb on the book?
Unfortunately not. He was out of town already. So I corresponded with him, and I talked to him on the phone a couple times. That was it.
So was he a big inspiration for you? Because he was around for a lot longer before that.
Well, I have a lot of inspiration, so yes, Crumb was one of them.
Who are the other inspirations?
Why, Seagar, who did the original Popeye, Will Eisner, who did The Spirit, all of the Fiction House artists. There were a number.
You got to work with more realistic storylines with American Splendor. Was that something you like to focus on other than the superhero kind of comics?
I'm frankly not that interested in superheroes. The only superhero who is a non-superhero that I really like is Popeye. But lately, in the past few years, I've worked with my wife, Laura Dumm, doing a series of environmental monster paintings like this one, which we've done and had a great time doing.
Now that you're here coming to these shows, how do you like meeting your fans?
I just like meeting people, and if they ending up liking the art, that's a bonus. But it's more of a social thing for me to get my ass out of the house.
So I know you've worked with Scott MacGregor on a couple of his books. What other books recently have you worked on?
Recently, small projects. I worked in a book called Wait, It Gets Worse. I've worked in a book called Savior Comics. A lot of little jobs. I mean, doing the graphic novel with Scott was the last really big job that I did. Took 4 years to do Fire on the Water.
It looks really good.
Well, thanks.
Well, we don't want to take up too much of your time. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Hey, this is Mark at the Cleveland Comic Book and Toy Show. I'm here with Dave and Cody of IronClad Comics. They're here to talk about their Warden series. Tell us, Dave. Tell us a little bit about what this book is about.
Right, so yeah, the Warden's our very first character, kind of thing about Batman plus Superman. We take the powers of Superman, the strength, the bulletproof skin, the hearing, but dial him down and throw him in Detroit, basically. So he's fighting crime, mobsters, criminals, drug dealers, human traffickers, a bunch of villains and stuff like that. And he's the very first character in our entire universe. And actually back here you can see we have tons of different characters for our universe. And we really try to establish a new myth for the 21st century. So we take scientific elements and supernatural elements and marry them together into a a cohesive universe, and the Warden's just the first character of that.
So what part do you have in this? Are you the writer, artist? Okay.
I am the writer of the Warden. We both are writers, and we both run the business side. We contract out artists to draw the books, and actually the entire team of the art team is all from Europe. So our main artist is from Portugal, our colorist is from Germany, and our letterer is from the UK, and we are from Toledo area. And we really wanted to spread our characters out, so that's why we have them in Detroit, because so often you see superheroes just in New York or in Metropolis or Gotham, you know what I mean? And we try to spread them out more and make them more in like the Midwest, for instance, because a lot of interesting stories can happen there.
Tell us, Cody, how long have you guys been working on this book?
This book specifically, we've been working about 2 years. It's been taking some time to get the art done. But as for writing it, it was about a 6-month process with about 3 different review cycles. And now we're on issue 4 because the 3rd issue just got backed on Kickstarter, which we'll sell on our website afterwards. And then now we're on issue 4 that's done and will be released in July.
What was some of the inspirations for the story, the characters?
Yeah, so David and I will go back and forth, and a lot of times we keep finding ourselves in a lot of classic literature and a lot of myth, a lot of those ideas, and kind of taking the ideologue characters and making them the new myth for this generation. So this character had some inspiration from Beowulf and Hercules, and then a lot of our other characters will be drawing from those different old myths and classical stories.
And Dave, what other characters or books do you guys have coming down the pipeline?
Yep. You see back here, our whole thing right here, we have tons of different stories. So we have a Devil's Tongues, our next book. It's a horror western about a modern cowboy in the 1990s in the Appalachian Mountains fighting a government experiment on the loose. We also have a story of a woman with fire powers who is from Massachusetts. We have a story about many sequels to the Warden, and actually he's fighting tons of villains. He has a villain called the Chess Master. It's kind of like a mastermind, super smart villain who's trying to test him. At the same time, we also have a villain called the Grendel, who's like a Hulk-sized monster who's going to face off toe-to-toe with the Warden as well. And Cody has another great series called Chastel, which is about 2 monster hunters from France who go around Europe and they fight vampires and werewolves. And the cool thing about our universe is the same thing that explains superheroes and their powers, the same thing that explains the vampires and the werewolves and the pagan gods and the witches. All that comes together in a very cool way.
Cody, where can people find your books?
IronCladComics.net. We ship internationally. You can buy them there, and then also there'll be links to show you where the Kickstarter is in case you want to get some of those extra goodies alongside the Kickstarter.
So, Dave, how did you guys meet and start doing comics?
Yep. So during COVID, I was at home all day. I was in high school at the time, and I started writing stories. And after that, I met up with Cody. He's like, "This is a great idea." So we just kind of started a business together, and it was really cool. And before that, I had a comic I was writing in high school. It kind of fizzled out, but then we got together. We butted heads and really figured out the way to build this company to something that's actually sustainable and has longevity to it. And so that's kind of where it started. Yeah, we actually have 40 books planned so far in our entire universe with 6 series and 12 main heroes, basically, across the whole thing.
You know, another question I want to ask, how many artists do you guys work with?
Right now on this project, we have 3 major artists, and then 4 if you count also the front cover and the back cover, that would be 5. We try to find a lot of different artists within the same community on Instagram that we like, or other people that we've connected to through conventions such as today. So over this time of about being a company for about 2.5 years, I would say about 20 to 30 artists. Yeah, just for different commissions and so forth.
That sounds cool. And this is Mark at the Cleveland Comic Book and Toy Show. Hey, this is Mark at the Cleveland Comic Book and Toy Show. I'm here with author Keith Cretin here to talk about some of the work he has here on his table. Tell us a little bit about some of these books here that you have got.
All right. Well, the first thing I'll cover, seeing as we are in the heart of American Splendor, is this. This is the 20-year anniversary issue of Rock and Roll Splendor. If Harvey Pekar of Cleveland fame had been a punk rock kid playing in bands and did stories about that, that's what Rock and Roll Splendor is. Half this is new material. The other half is stuff from the past 20 years of me doing self-publishing. And to my ultimate geek happiness, Gary Dumm, the original artist who did the cover of American Splendor #1, 1970, the year I was born, he did this homage cover, which is laid out exactly like the first issue one. the stories are autobiographical in that, yes, I've played in bands, so there's little snippets. There's goofy little stories that have kind of a humorous slant, but it's all autobiographical in my life for rock. But on the other side of comicdom, I do stories that are fictitious, where I fight space aliens and monsters. As gratuitous as it comes. I have no superpowers, but years ago I thwarted an alien invasion, and they've been gunning for me ever since. I was in a band called Joey 74. We did nothing but Ramones covers. I'm a huge Ramones fan. It's pretty much a religion. And our mascot was Joey Punkaroo. I used to do crazy funny stories about Joey, but I never did an origin story. So this particular story is how me and Joey teamed up. I was playing a gig at the Columbus Zoo, and an alien bounty hunter came after me. Chaos ensued. All the story is here. Now, I don't do crowdfunding. I don't do any of that kind of stuff internet-wise where I ask for people to pay for stuff in advance, okay? What I do to get my books in nice comic book form like this is I do my first love, and I do zines. These I print myself. I'm the guy at the print shop at Half Past Stupid, stapling himself and getting all this nonsense. I put the stories here first. After I've raised money via selling these at open mic nights, coffee houses, punk rock shows, at the comic shop I work at, then I take that money and I bank it, and then I collect it in books like this. Case in point, this was in zine form first. But then as a benefit, because it was a zine and it was smaller, I put bonus material. So I did bottom feeder funnies, which is all new funny strips that are in the bottom. So I try, and when I do a nicer, bigger publication, I try and make sure there's new material that's indigenous just to that. Now, the thing I want to express the most is, comics as an independent form aren't lost. I'm 55. Most guys my age will get on a soapbox and bitch about the younger folks and everything else, et cetera, et cetera. It's not. It's there. It's vibrant. It's if you go to any of these smaller, just strictly independent cons, you'll see. The only difference is printing and how things are set up is a lot different. But the spirit is there, and it's all very DIY, do-it-yourself. It's all very punk rock, and it's all very passionate. They do it because they love it. I'm not making bank here. I'm not rolling in dough. I turn the money and I do it again. Why? Because I have to do it. The same way I play music. I just play music because I love to play music. And that's so you'll hear. Any interviews you're going around at Comic Cons and things like that, there's always some old guy who's hemming and hawing and saying it's done. And it's not. It's not. Just how it's expressed, how it's distributed, how it's put out into the hands of people has gotten different. I still stick to the old school. I'm happy that way. I do most of my stuff on paper. The artist I work with, Mike Nino, everything's on paper. I proudly own the original art from that Rock and Roll Splendor that Gary did. He did that on paper. You got to scan it to print, but it's all that physical commodity. But like I said, that's the big thing. You don't let anyone tell you that independent comics and in comics in general are dying in any way, shape, or form. It's just changing. And like anything else, it's you change or die. And I've been able to blend. I've been able to work with a lot of individuals. Some of the artists I have are my age, some are younger. I work with different artists, different creators. And that's it. You embrace that. You embrace that change, and it makes you stronger for it. Truth be told, I didn't know how to use a computer until COVID. It's fact. Last computer I touched was a Commodore 64 in high school, and I ditched class to get high, so I never passed the class. And for years, when I owned and ran a coffee house and comic book store, I never answered an email. My wife would print them out, and I would write my responses, and she would actually send them back. Like I said, I have no clue. But when COVID hit, we had to do a lot of stuff at the shop I work, and I had to I'm not using anything. So there you go. Adapt or die, right? He was so.
But what I don't would ever with American Splendor as one of your inspirations, what were some of their other artists in his comics that he fired you to get into comics?
My first job, actually, I worked at a comic book store, and until I got a worker's permit, I haunted the place, and he gave me work, and I got introduced to underground comics, indie comics, etc. So that broadened my base. Harvey Pekar, American Splendor, yes, but the funny thing is, World Series. Okay, so I grew up in Manchester, New Hampshire. I moved to Ohio in the 90s. The first con I was at with my own little comics and everything else was in Dover, and Eastman and Laird, the Ninja Turtle guys, were there. This is before they got big, et cetera, et cetera. So, Eastman and Laird are a huge inspiration. They were very kind to me when I was younger. Kevin is awesome. If you ever go to shows, he's very, very personable. To the point that in my comics, all the Elvis impersonators across the world are part of a secret spy organization. But in my comics, Dr. Eastman and Dr. Laird are in there as themselves, which another geek moment out of both Kevin and Pete when I saw him at cons asked me to sign my book and gave it to him, and that was a lot of fun. They're like, hey, look, hey, it's Meek. So yeah, they're big. Tim Truman, who worked on a book called Grimjack, and he worked also on like the Grateful Dead comics. He's worked on a lot of mainstream stuff over the years. He's a huge inspiration. The Archie comics, I'm a big Archie fan. In fact, there's a bronze life-size statue of Archie sitting on a park bench up near Laconia, New Hampshire, where my folks live. And it faces where Archie's creator actually had a residence and supported the community for years. So like the Archie stuff, my first stuff was a lot like Archie or Steve Ditko. These are the people who pretty much taught me how to draw. Fortunately, I don't draw a whole lot anymore. I got severe arthritis. I still play guitar and muscle through it. So I do a lot of layouts. I do a lot of writing, and I would work with other artists. But for years as a kid, looking at old Archie books, Dan DiCarlo is a big hero of mine. Worked on all the Archie stuff. He's been in there. Scott Shaw, who created Captain Carrot for DC Comics and also did tons of indie stuff. When I was a big, huge inspiration to me as well. So those are the people who really, got me into comics. And when it came to self-publishing, it was pretty much Eastman and Laird. I did the con, and then I watched how they were, and it was all very much, it's goofy, I'm just going to give it a shot. And, that's pretty much what I've been doing for right to room, I guess. Right?
So where can people find your books?
Well, I'm here at the con. I also do a lot of indie cons. I do some of the bigger cons, but I work at World's Greatest Comics in Westerville, Ohio. You got a Facebook page. We'll look at World's Greatest Comics. And, I've always got my books there. Owner there is very, very nice. So allows me to kind of, pick my wares there and whatnot. But also, I'm in I do an acoustic duo called the Atomic Zombies. It's 2 guys, 2 guitars. Some songs are silly and stupid. Some are topical and serious. So I always got those at the merch table. If you look me up on Facebook, you look up Keith Cretin. You look up Cretin Comix. All that information's there. You can, I do mail order. And heck, I mailed some books to Japan the other day. It was kind of wild. So, yeah, but primarily, if you want to get me, just look at Facebook or go to World's Greatest Comics. Or, I'm always pimping where I'm out there playing music and noising up the joint. So, check it out.
Well, Keith, it was a pleasure speaking with you. This is Mark, Cleveland Comic Book and Toy Show.
That's it for this episode of the Comics Beer and Sci-Fi Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we hope you'll join us next time.